how did the Britishers reach America, or how did the process of colonization of America begin? The simple answer is religious persecution. Britain was a Catholic country, but in the 16th century, the King of England wanted to divorce his wife and marry another woman. The Pope forbade it because it was against the Catholic belief. Now, this King of England is Henry the Eighth. He was the father of Queen Elizabeth. Now, who was Queen Elizabeth? Queen Elizabeth was the queen when Shakespeare wrote his plays. So it was the Elizabethan period. So King Henry the Eighth was the ruler before Queen Elizabeth. Henry the Eighth changed his religion and declared himself to be a Protestant. Martin Luther had started a movement which became known as the Protestant movement, and then it became the Protestant version of Christianity. So this was slowly gaining ground in Europe, and Henry the Eighth saw this as an opportunity to get married again. So he changed his religion. When the most powerful person in the country remarried and changed his religion, the people in the country also began to convert to the Protestant religion. Within a span of 100 years, Britain had become a nation of Protestants with few Catholic believers. Their religion was actually a mixture of Protestant and Catholic practices and is called the Anglican Church. Some of the Protestant believers wanted to remove all the Catholic elements from their religion and make their religion pure from all the Catholic elements in it. They held extreme views and were orthodox to a great extent. This was met with a lot of resistance, and eventually these Puritans left England and searching for a land where they could preach their pure version of Christianity, they came to America, which had already been discovered then. So this was the land of opportunity for them. Thus began the colonization of America. This happened in the 17th century. Slowly, more settlers came and the colonies of these white settlers increased. So what happened to the people who were already living in those lands before the British arrived? They were befriended initially, then slowly they were all massacred or driven away from their own homes. If the Britishers found the natives too powerful, they brokered deals and offered to buy their lands. If they refused to sell their land, they were taken by force. Many of the native populations were wiped off by the whole package of diseases the Europeans brought with them. The European colonizers were always on the hunt for better lands. The Native Americans were hence driven away and in some cases offered land which were called reservations. The term reservation is a legal designation. There were many Native American tribes. Usually we call these people Red Indians. That is not the correct term to address these people. This Native Americans is a collection of several groups of tribes. So they were considered nations. Means they had separate powers. Just like we had princely states in our country. So after India became a free country, we gave certain powers or certain rights for the princely states. Just like that, in America, when the American government took charge, these nations or these tribes were given separate rights. But most of their lands were already taken by the government, so they were given separate places in remote locations so that they can settle and live peacefully to an extent. This concept of reservation comes from the idea of the Native American nations as independent sovereigns at the time the US Constitution was ratified. Even before America became an independent country, independent from Britain, there was such a concept of reservations. The first reservation was established in southern New Jersey on 29th August 1758. So, a few years before America actually became independent. Now, this reservation was the Brotherton Indian Reservation. Okay, so after that, several other tribes were given separate places so that they can settle. Now, today, a majority of Native Americans and Alaska natives live somewhere other than the reservations, often in the larger western cities such as Phoenix and Los Angeles. By the end of the 19th century, almost all the Native American tribes found themselves homeless as all their land were now being controlled by the American government. They were made refugees in their own land, having to move from one location to another according to the whims and fancies of the white government. Unlike the white settlers, the Native Americans were living as a part of nature. Their livelihood was closely connected with their lands. Their beliefs and their very essence of their identity was inherently connected with nature. When they were driven out of this peaceful coexistence with nature, it destroyed the pact they had made with nature. Did the white man stay true to the promises made to the Native Americans about protecting their rights? And no, they were pushed into the shadows. The reserved lands they were given were reduced drastically, and they were never allowed to settle. Whatever lands remained were not sufficient for these people who were born to roam free. Their farming and hunting practices suffered because of this. Many had to shed their cultural symbols to fit the culture of the white man. They had to give up their headgear, their body paint, their language, and their pride to survive. Their culture was ridiculed for almost half a century in the movies we call Western movies, where the cowboys are the heroes and the Native Americans were mostly portrayed as savages. Many had to live in remote places, completely cut off from their culture. The Native Americans experienced a sense of loss and identity issues, and many of them just withered away, unable to adjust to systems offered to them by the white man.